Okay, good morning. Oh, you know what? You can't hear me. That's where the issue is coming from. Okay, here, I can fix this. One, two, three. Or at least not clearly. We'll fix it. 2, 3. Okay, that should fix the issue completely there. Y'all should be able to hear me. Let me check this really quick. Okay, audio and video good, guys? Mic check. You can hear me. Okay, good, good, good. Okay, let's roll. Okay, guys. So first of all, I posted the levels, obviously, and the key level for me today is this 2907, just straight out of the box, fairly straightforward, right? We are one timing to the upside. That is generally considered bullish. 1, 2, 3 days in a row. So how does it usually work when we break or before we get bearish? We usually trade below prior day's low and then trade back in. Let me give you an example of that really quick, and then you can see how that works. So you can see here how we were one timing to the downside on this particular day, all the way down. Each day we failed to trade above the prior day's high. We trade above one day. Notice that we close back into range. That is totally normal, both on the top and on the bottom, right? That we trade outside. If we open inside the prior day's range, not a gap down or a significant gap up, meaning a gap up out of range, we tend to poke our head out of range and then fall back in. So if you looked at 100 examples, about 70 to 80 of them are going to fall into this example. A few of them will fall into the just straight up or straight down concept, but not many. So I'm obviously interested in focusing on the what's the 70 or 80%, what's the 70 or 80% setting, right? So if you look, right, I expect it to push down. So let's talk about a couple things. Let's first of all talk about where our highest odds setup lies. If you look, we're trading at 29.11, right? That would put 28.91-ish, this area right in here, down about 20 points from where we're currently trading, right? So you have several areas in there that are of interest, okay, and where we would be looking for responses. From this approximately 29.04, right, to 28.94 to 28.92, an untested value area low at 28.89 1/4, right? All of this would obviously put us on a 20-point stretch. I expect a response back up, and I would suspect this will be your highest odds location for a solid long for a swing back up into value, right? So it doesn't mean that we can get down there. In order to even attempt this area, we're going to have to trade below 29.07. Obviously, we have not overnight. Is this something's off here? Hold on one second. 29. Let me see something really quick. Why does this seem off? Because right now, that's why. There we go. 29.0875. So if we get below and hold below 29.07, and I'm inclined to short, which obviously I need a setup for, we'll look at the deltas in just a second. My target, once I'm underneath here, would be this low right here, Friday's low. That's it. I'm looking to maybe pierce it. There's a naked volume point of control that's been almost tested 2 times and was almost tested from underneath. My experience with points of control that have almost been tested but missed by a tick is that they tend to get traded through and not be very reliable. That being said, it exists. So watch for potential bounce there. What I would suspect is we come in and somewhere between this whole balance day, right? So remember, this represents where 75% of the time was spent, and you can see the majority of the volume is built in that area. I would naturally assume as a trader that that's going to get defended the first time in, right? So once again, from everywhere from 28.96 all the way down to 28.96 to 28.89 1/4, I'm looking through this whole area for responsive buyers and a push back up. If we get down here, I'm looking for one timing to end. How do we define one timing? When we are going down, right? Down, down, down. The first time we trade above the last 30-minute period, once we've established that we're one timing to the downside, that ends the one timing that obviously lets the counter rotations work pretty easily. I would look for the same thing in this area if we do push down, right? Now, what's the opposite side of the story? Between 29.13 and 29.07, if we open here, as it looks like we're going to, I expect open auction, right? What does open auction look like? It looks like this. Here, I'll show you. I'm a visual guy. I prefer visual representations instead of just describing the price action. So this is that. This is the same chart I posted over on the blog, right? And if you look to the left, see this open right here? This is pretty close to an open auction. Yes, we opened up and we pushed, but really we just chopped back and forth. We had a couple of examples last week, right? Open auction. No one has control. We're in a tight range and we just auction up and down through that range, and we really don't make any clear move. This took almost 45 to 50 minutes before we made a clear move to the downside. And the problem with that is this. Let's say you short here, and then you get all the way down here and you're like, hey, I'm up 5 points. We should go down to target, right? You can't see my crosshairs. Let me get the crosshairs up. Pointer. Okay. The problem with this is, let's say you shorted perfectly, right? And you go, oh, I'm up 3 points or 4 points on the trade. I'm going to move my stop to break even. It's very common that it just comes back and tests once again. And even with this, you'll look and go, oh, we must be reversing. Then it comes all the way back down. Your brain can play a lot of tricks on you, right? So the philosophy I'm joining more and more is, number one, know what it looks like when the market can actually make a big move. This is something that I was doing in a coaching session with one of the members in the room this weekend, and I want to show you this, okay? It's important. Let me switch this over. This goes back over. Heck, I don't know. Over here, I really don't need it. Okay. Where am I looking? Right here. There we go. Okay. Okay. What does it look like when the market really makes an extension down? Okay, so it's a little tricky in ES. So when you look at the bigger picture and you suck this all in, okay, historically, the biggest move, see how the ranges expand to the downside? This is where it's relatively easy in areas like this to get shorts to work for you huge, right? If you're trying to trade up in this area and make huge expansions work, right? What happens at the top third? You constantly get responsive buyers because people want in on the trade, right? And it's very, very easy just to have them step in, stop, and roll it all the way back up. So people who try to short up here, you usually experience constant frustration, versus people who are trying to get long usually experience constant rewards, right? So at the bottom of the range, big ranges, right? At the top, very tiny counter rotations down and making the shorts work, right? So step one is, I'd actually like to see a big breakdown. But in order to have that breakdown or the breakout, right? Next logical question is, well, what will that look like today? Okay, on the upside, in order to push out, remember Friday I said even if we got above the high, that each of these little locations would act as counter rotations, creating choppy conditions, right? If you look, that rule now applies for above 29.13 and a quarter. We need two things. First of all, we need it trading above 29.13 and a quarter, right? And holding above. Even if it holds above, I expect rotation, counter rotation, counter rotation. Now, that can still mean that we come from here all the way up to the old swing high, which I believe is 22.50 is the year-to-date high on the December contract, right? So we can still end up coming out here and still end up with price action that looks like chop, basically. Here, I'll put this up again. Show you on the 5-minute chart. Okay. You can make it all the way up, grind all the way through there. Let me squeeze it over to find PA that looked familiar to what I was describing. Okay, so see on this day how we ground all the way up, and see through here, even though it's going up, it's just not moving, because if you look to the left, look where the market finally breaks and makes big extensions is above prior day's value area. If you look over here, this got us above prior day's value area. See, until we escape those areas and there's clear sailing, it just tends to be choppy and not make an easy move. You have to have a lot of patience in here to catch this move. Nonetheless, it still makes the move up, right? First, what most of us want as day traders is we want this. Yeah, it's just like, please just go quickly, get to my target, pay me my 10 points, and get out of here. High volatility tends to occur in the middle and lower end of the range. Top end of the range tends to be slow, continuous grinds, right? So what I'm looking for today is even if we get above value area high, due to the fact that we have all this above us, or different mouse, there we go. Due to the fact that we have all this above us, right? All these little points, I expect it to grind all the way through here and not be fast. By the same token, don't get sucked in by the short up here unless you have a great setup, because the market tends to want to finish the auction. Next, I put on the Slack channel yesterday. You can read the article if you want. I really could care less one way or the other than I know it'll affect trading. There is going to be news out sometime today regarding the Trump tariffs and China and whether they're going to continue the meeting. China's already threatened to say if Trump goes through with the tariffs, that they will not sit down and talk about it. It doesn't matter, right? This is something that there's no way to predict the outcome of this other than to know the market's gone 10 to 20 points each time news has popped up about this, and it's been random. It happened Friday. It happened a week ago prior Friday. It's tended to come out between 10 and 12 o'clock, the news. That's where Trump is, or one of his people has tended to either made a comment or send out a tweet, and the market is rolled down. That's not a big deal. Just know I've gotten stopped. It's happened 3 times. I've gotten stopped 2 out of 3 times on long side trades. All you can do is shrug your shoulders. That's what stops are there for. When you're trading your proper setup and news comes out and just runs it down, you just got to take the stop. That's part of the benefit of the stop. It's not a penalty to you. It's a benefit to you. Otherwise, you'd have suffered a 10 or 15 point stop, right? You don't want that. Okay, so finally, what are we looking for off the open? Let's go highlight, and then if I have a couple minutes, I'm going to highlight what worked Friday specifically, right? So coming off of this, make sure I have this set correctly. Okay. All the deltas should be on the December contract now. Okay, so if we look pre-market, where's our biggest delta before the open, right? So we're just going to stretch this out. And what jumps out at me, let me make sure I have this right on the other computer. Wow, my data is so far off between these two, and I don't know why. I have this right here, this 520 is my biggest delta. I don't think I have anything bigger than that. And that took place at 3 in the morning in the London session. So this whole bar right here, right in the middle of all that, you either have to close above and push, right, which makes sense. You have the 29.11 right above, or you'd expect pre-market. If we were opening underneath, I would simply say target the bottom of that for a quick counter rotation back down. If we were above, I would say target this bar. We're opening inside, right? So I would just let it be for a little bit and let the market figure out which way they want to take it. Again, I expect open auction. I don't expect the market to drive higher or lower. I expect us to chop. My guess is the entire market will be on hold until the president says something, meaning we're just going to chop up a little bit. We're going to chop down a couple points. If you are trading this, you are looking for hit and runs until we establish above and hold above value. And then what my bet would be, what I'm looking to have happen is for us to slowly grind through and up to challenge the old highs, right? My scenario changes underneath 2907. If we establish underneath 2907 and hold, if we can get underneath there, right, and hold, would be a rollback down and to test these levels lower down into 85, 86. And also the 2900 is obviously a round number. Expect responses at the 2900 as well. But first we have to get below and hold below prior day's low. So that's it, really. I'm looking for the biggest deltas to print, and I'm in pretty much a scout mode. It's Monday. It's balanced. Usually the edges are the easiest place to trade, right? The other thing I want to point out was the setup on Friday for the long. Push this out a little bit. And Randy had this nailed to the T. 16, 14. There we go. Okay. I want to show 2 things here. See this right here? Why? There we go. Okay. There was one more component on this trap. So this is the trap. Biggest delta on the rotation down at the low of the day. Delta divergence. Star bar closes above. The only thing this was missing was the point of control didn't close above. It actually occurred on this. Notice that both bars worked, right? Randy took the long right here. He didn't get his half size filled back, but he did get his half his size on. He nailed it. A couple people nailed it in the room. I wasn't here to take this trade, but this is perfect. Not only that, look at that trade. You broke the low of the day, right? Set back at 11 a.m. They really pushed down. That's the biggest break of the day. Look at once we trap back in, look at the run back to the upside, and you have the exact same trade setup on NQ. Look at NQ's trade for those who are trading NQ. Let me pull that over. This is NQ, same trade setup. Okay. Biggest two deltas of the afternoon, right? See the prior one's all the way up here at 380, okay? But then we had a pretty big stretch down, and then on this rotation down, you now end up with pretty close to the 300 delta right there, right? We break the swing low to the left, right? This is a much smaller range bar. They attempt to break. Notice that? As soon as this attempt to break, see how you can see delta increase significantly there? Look what happens as soon as they close on top of that delta. That occurs. You could use either bar, but one occurs right here. You could call this bar. Either way, it trades right back up as it should to the biggest delta and then falls off. See that? You get a 510 right at the high, pressing against the 380. The 510 can't break the 380. What is that telling you? It's telling you, hey, they pushed real hard. They couldn't make it. We close underneath. They come back for a backside test, and they roll down to 75.60, although I think you're a little maniac if you're trying to short the last hour of the day. Simple rule. I'm not trading the last hour. My losses have all come in the last, a lot of losses have come in the last hour for me. I've started trying to pick it back up and trying to make it work. I simply will not have any open positions after the last hour. If I have an open trade, stop will be moved to break even, and I hope it works, right? So a couple of other notes, and let me jump back over to the open here real quick, right? A couple of other notes, and everyone should have that key level again. I'm watching 2907 like a hawk. So a couple of other notes that are important for the day, okay? Hold on 1 second. There we go. Saw these lines. Okay. Number one, you're trying to distinguish what we're doing when we don't have a big trade setup and the potential to have a big swing one way or the other. You are attempting to simply put money in your pocket and roll along. You have to be able to distinguish between a big swing and a potential home run, right? And hey, we're not going anywhere really fast, right? The not going anywhere really fast requires that you sit back and deliberate and make sure you have the trade that you want. And I want to say that again. When you're following someone, even with someone with a lot of experience who's good at what they do, it can be tough when your strategy gets messed with or your emotions or your thought process gets messed with. So what I would like everyone in the room to do is write down, is this the trade I want before you take it? And even if Simon says it is the best trade on the face of the earth, if it doesn't fit with what you were looking for pre-market with your scenario or the exact setup that you want, I want you to not take the trade, right? And if the trade works out, I just want you to write notes and then decide next time if that's the trade that you want. It's the easiest way to make money and not get crushed. The other thing I'd like you to look at is consider stretch. If we're down 20 points and a short setup comes, odds are once you're past 20 points on the downside on ES, the odds of a short continuation working are very, very low. And even if the short setup is there, what you tend to do is focus on that short. And then when the long comes along a couple minutes later, you're like, well, I was looking short. I got stopped. I don't want to take the long. So remember, down 15, 20, 25 points, I am looking long. I'm ignoring my short setups. Even if that means it went down 35 that particular day, I don't care. It's highly unlikely to happen at the very top third of the range, right? The next part, on the short, we're approaching all-time highs. Shorts are harder, particularly above value area high, which is we've marked off and noted here. I'm going to note it right here. Again, where is this chart settings? On cancel. Okay. If I go over to this chart, sure my parameters are correct. They are. See where those yellow lines are right there? I'm going to turn them purple here in a second because that's just my coding, right? Okay, now let's go back to the 6 range bar. Very simple. If I'm above here, you better give me damn convincing evidence that I'm going to take a short, right? Even if I'm taking if I have a perfect setup, meaning a big delta, get underneath the big delta, backside tested, et cetera, I'm still looking for just a few points. I'm going to scalp, bring my stops down, and hope it works. If I get stopped and it works for 100 points, c'est la vie. There'll be another setup. On the other hand, on a long setup, if I get above here and I get a long setup, meaning a backside of test of a big delta above here, I'm going to let that trade press, right? I'm going to let it push big, because I know I have the potential to come back to this 29.22. I don't know that it'll come back to the 29.22. I just know that I have big potential to have that perhaps happen. I want to be on the side of the potential. Now, underneath here, if we come underneath here, form a big delta underneath 29.07, I can get under and either backside test it or do the half-half entry method, meaning 50% on the trigger, 50% on the backside test size-wise, right? Yeah, I'm going to try and push that trade if I can to at least Friday's low, right? And then once I get to Friday's low, I'm going to move my stop to break even, knowing that there's probably responsive buyers at Friday's low, right? And most importantly, when I'm inside the range, inside of this value area, this is Friday's value area high, Friday's value area low, I just expect it to chop. I don't expect anything great to happen in that area. And I want to relax, right? I want to say it again. I want to relax and let that trade work out for me. That is it. And anyways, that's my that is my 2 cents. And I will be around. So let's just let the first half hour unfold. I'm going to leave the YouTube channel up for a while, and we'll see what sets up. Okay, just 1 second. Trying below that 07, right? First attempt at getting test lower. Guys, by the way, members, if you look over on the Slack channel, right, I've started a new copper chart setting. I'm basically putting all my homework on copper over on that Slack channel. Here, I'll show it to you really quick while I'm quiet. Again, pretty much not a very large range, right? Right now we're dealing with five points on ES, right? We are underneath that 2907, by the way. NQ is down a decent amount, 47 points, but ES is really just kind of, we haven't done anything dramatic. And if we fall apart, I'm good with it. I'm ready to act upon it if we do, but I'm going to give it the first half hour. This is hypothetically on a 5-minute chart. Potential for an open drive lower. Here, I'll pull this up. Wow. Let me get this over. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second, then I'll show you. Okay, I'll pull this over so everyone can see this. There we are. Okay, 1, 2, 3 bars down, but notice, not out of range, right? Just underneath value area low. Just not a big deal to me. It's opening within range. I still expect it to be choppy. If they do roll it down, that's great. We need it, right? If we can actually roll down and break, volatility will increase. But until it does, this is just suckering people in, and we're in that mode. If you look at the chart, we're just in that mode where people are going to want to buy dips. So the obvious logical answer here is if we do get news out of Trump and they pump it down, just like Friday, we're looking for the same setup to get the easy ride back to the upside, right? The short was hard. It's funny. I had someone go, hey, I expected that roll to the downside on Friday, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. He did actually have a setup on his own charts that gave him a roll to the downside. But damn, look how hard it was to get that short. Look at that. Look at the size of the 5-minute bars. And then you sat sideways for an hour in a short. Most people can't tolerate that. I know I can't. So long story short, I think the ride back up is easier than the ride back down. So that's my 2 cents on that. I'm not saying don't take the short. I probably will if one sets up, but it's going to have to set up properly. So if you look, I created a channel called the Moscow Mule, Copper, Moscow Mule, get it? Aha. Okay, and I've gone through, and you'll see I've left my notes up there. I've gone through in detail. If you're trying to learn it, guys, without coaching, this is great stuff. I went through this at least 15 times through the day on my iPad when I was with my family, or watching football, glancing through, looking at what these setups look like. I gave in detail looks both at the large range and the small range on these charts, along with the momentum divergences down here at the bottom and on the top. And this is just really great stuff. I'm looking for this stuff repeatedly. Copper moves slow until it doesn't, right? And I won't trade copper around news because it just flies. It's very institutionally dominated, right? So it becomes very, very mechanical. So again, members, Moscow Mule, read through that on Slack. It's even if you don't trade it, right? It's good exposure to how using the same method we're using in ES applies to other markets and how you can figure out what the heck is going on in the market. In the meantime, we're obviously burning time because we need this to get past 9 a.m. for me to get started. There's the biggest delta of the day, hands down, and that's delta divergence, by the way. Expect to close back in to generate a push back up to 29.13 1/4. So I want to highlight that. Biggest negative delta of the entire 24-hour session right there. Close above, right? What's the method? Half, half, push. The only thing you have to ask yourself, is it okay to trade inside the first half hour or not, right? I didn't even bother looking if we have econ coming up, so I'll go look. For the most part, it just doesn't matter. Zip, got nothing. Quiet day. Like I said, this argues for balance in a slow market. Expect that trap back in. The settings really easily. You just got to decide if you're willing to trade in the first half hour, right? Close above this bar, right? Point of control above. The perfect setting is the point of control and the bar closes above. I've got to fix this. The colors are so dark. I'll get it fixed in a minute. Close above, right? Half here, half at the top of this bar, right? Now all you got to decide is if it's all right for you. There you go. So wherever this bar ends up closing, which would be 29.08, so your entry would be 29.08, 29.0675. Your stop would be 2 ticks below the low, which brings you to 29.0475. So what's the only problem with that trade, right? Notice that the Globex and Friday's lows, if they get tested, right, will tag you out on this trade. It's all right. The whole point of this average, if you went 29.08 and then you added another one at 29.0675, you'd be about 29.07 and a quarter to 29.0750, and your stop would be 29.0475. So it's about a 2 to 2 and 3 tick stop, right? Very manageable. And your RR, even if you just tested the top of the overnight range, right, would still get you a 1-to-1 RR. If you get back up here to 13, you've got about a 2-to-1 RR. So everything there is attractive. First, you got to close above it. So that didn't happen, right? And then realize that's the biggest delta. So a close underneath would make this your resistance point as well, unless we replace that delta, right? So there's nothing for me to do here, but wait. Let's go see if NQ's got anything for us. Second. And I've got nothing on NQ. 70 right now. I got 75.39 to 75.45. That's your trap number above. And I don't. And on NQ, value area low from Friday. So we are now trading below value area low, right? And NQ has a bit different picture here. I'll drag it over so you can see it. NQ is not one timing to the upside. See how we came up? We closed underneath prior day's value. We opened up underneath the point of control, and now we're below. Let's erase this, or just change color. Color, green for the low, purple for the value area low. Naked point of control, right? We obviously have sliced through that, okay? If we don't get back above, it would be normal to get a backside test at this value area low, even if we're going to reject. And then the natural target on this, there's an anomaly right here that wants to get tested, and then finally the anomaly with the naked volume point of control and TPO point of control, and then an untested value area low, untested value area high, which we just came off of, okay? Okay, so this has been, so each of these levels, right? Remember, locals are in control. So if you look at this chart, right? So if we take this chart and we duplicate the chart. Now we clean it up. Right? Anyone can do this. There's nothing special about the skill set of drawing lines. When locals are control, they all work, right? There's a 5-minute chart. You can see we sliced right through value area low, right? We sliced right through this anomaly. So remember, people bought at the anomaly. So what do? People who are trapped, you backside test them. They offered back out. Where did we come to next? Untested value area low, responded right back up. And this lets you know locals are in charge, right? Because institutions don't trade this way, okay? So locals are in charge. Expect every little point to get some kind of ping pong around it, okay? And then the last piece is, if you look at the bigger picture, from an order flow perspective, okay, there's your biggest delta of the session right there. You can see we haven't backside tested it. They're coming back up. That 75.39 comes just underneath the 75.48. So remember, you still have to make it past 75.48. So that's 39 to 45. What you want to see is a close above on a point of control. And then again, half, half. Just remember that's right near the value area low, right? So if you take that long, expect noise there. Don't expect it to be easy. And what you'd really like to see is the biggest delta form on the bottom or near the bottom and get above. This is a bit harder trade because you have so much underneath. And you have at 75, 48.50. Here, I'll put it on this chart. 48.50. That's value area low. You got to get back into it. Okay, so I don't buy the downside hype. And then you'll also see, look as we're coming to the low. Look at the prior low off to the left. Okay, on momentum. That was the low. That aligned with back over here. Okay. Okay. Next, this one right here. All right. Okay, that's here. Now look at the divergence on momentum as we're pushing back up. That's not what it looks like when we break, right? So what I'd love to see is this break this low on big delta, close back above, and that gives me a clean shot back to 48.50, right? I'd love to see that happen. Get these guys trapped, pushing back up, and then if I get lucky on my trailer, we get back above 48.50 and push to the other end of the range, right? That's all. What I'm anticipating is what it'll look like, but look at how I hold a concept in my head, right, of what it might look like, either to the long side or to the downside. The flip side of that equation is if you want to short, this is where you want to short. If you want to short NQ, that's 75.39 to 75.49, but I sure as hell would have a stop behind 75.48.50 and be ready to take it 2 times. Okay, so here, I know y'all can't see where I was pointing, so I'll fix that. Right here's your biggest delta. We're getting momentum divergence into the low. Does not mean we can't go down more, right? I'm just saying if you look day over day, we got a decent push right out the open. We've broken that low, but on less momentum, on smaller size deltas, right? So this is your biggest delta right here. We've now printed a big delta on the bottom. So 2 things. It's not the biggest. This is 367. This is 327. If you get above this, expect to test back up here. And again, I expect ping pong action. So don't be surprised if we just ping pong in a tight area until we resolve it. Again, I think the market's going to wait till Trump says something or China says something, one of the two. And so I don't expect it to be easy trading one way or the other. That's my 2 cents on that. So anyways, I'll leave it. I'm going to leave this. Since I have the levels that we are looking for, let's get rid of this. Leave it off to the side. And we'll just work on here. By the way, new biggest delta, 30.80. See that right there? New biggest delta, 30.80. 30.27, which is good. Why is that good? If we can get above this guy now, half, push to the upside. The other hand is you now have to get above, and it's basically 2 big deltas in the same area. So this whole area becomes pretty important at this point. Both those deltas, basically treat them as one, right? That has to be gotten above now. But if you get above that, you'll have sellers trapped, right? And then I got to do a quick look on momentum. Okay, and this is what I see on my other chart, which is we have a big momentum push, right? There's your swing low right there. We're not breaking that swing low on the biggest momentum push we've had in a couple of days. Here, I'll bring that in. Here's the old ones, right? Right there, right there. Okay, so see how these big momentum pushes came? Then they try to push lower again right here, and they couldn't break. Look at the response back. Oh, wait, you can't see that because I have it so tiny. Sorry. See those momentum pushes over here? Here. Right, see that? Couldn't break the swing low. Push back up. Another big momentum push here. Can't even break the local swing low. Then look at the response back up after that's done, right? Well, we're getting a big push to the downside right here. Look, you're not breaking balance. You're still inside going back to Friday and Thursday, right? Nothing has changed here. So if you get above, guess what? There's that leg. Here's sideways consolidation, continuation, and push back to 29.22. So you're going to have to show me something that actually looks bearish to get me to be bearish. So that's my 2 cents on that. Let me open this back up. And I'm going to put a line right here. I will execute the half-half strategy above that 30.27, by the way. Okay. So it's close enough to 9 o'clock. We're within 3 minutes. So close above half, backside test half. I'll take the stop. So you got to adjust, right? This came down. I think it's worth adding the risk right here if you can't, or be willing to take the trade 2 times, right? So right now the entry would be roughly, again, 29.07 to 29.08. So 29.08, 29.0650 pitch you roughly at 29.07 and a quarter. Stop is going to be less than 29.0, between 29.04 and 29.05, probably 29.04 and a quarter. It's going to be about a 3-point stop, but your RR is there to get to 1-to-1. Okay. So anyways, let's just keep monitoring. And remember, trading's not, as a day trader, we're not looking to trade a lot. We're looking to trade the ones that give us the best odds to get paid, right? Who cares what the market actually does from any other perspective? By the way, I'm very keen. They just closed copper above Friday's value area. It is we're right at the bottom of that we're back to the 2016 breakout area here. So it makes sense that we would get short squeezed in response to buyers. Let's see how we closed. This is a tiny 4-range chart. See how as soon as we closed in, short squeeze up, right? I am looking to get below. So in here, this 893 is my biggest delta in here, right? Followed by the 709. I'm very sensitive to this area right here. So right now it looks like we've attempted to close above. This is a larger range bar, right? This was the first close back in, right? If you had taken this trade, it would have failed because it fell back underneath 29.63. Remember, this is all overnight, so this is the smaller range. So notice as soon as we close back in on the smaller range, this is this right here, right? That little rip right there is $200 or $300 a contract on this little rip, okay? So what am I looking for? If we close below that 2603 on a big delta, or I'm looking intraday, it's that 106 that's capping us right there. If we can't get over that 106, the only reason I'm not shorting that is I know we have this value area low right here that has to be gotten under in order to roll to the downside. But you can see as we push new highs, we already have momentum divergence up into that, right? I just need to see it underneath this 2603. If I get underneath that 2603, I will attempt to short to retest overnight lows and going back into break this 2618 area or more, right? This has the potential of closing underneath here if they get ugly, of really pushing to the downside in a big way. But first it has to get underneath the value. My assumption would be as long as we hold above value or we close back into value a second time, as long as that holds, 2.6800 would be my target on top. I just don't have the setup I wanted came all the way back over here off the large formation. This is the setup I wanted for long, and I wasn't around to take it. So so now I'm going to have to wait till it sets up again, and it will. I had a small trade right here this morning while I was doing the pre-market. I took what did I take? We came back against, I took this right here. We got that 61 on the bottom, right? Closed above it, pushed back against it. Once this bar closed, I took it from here to here. Not very much. I only took $75 or $80, $75 or $100 a contract, but it paid back into that 106. Again, I'm ignoring that 106. Why? Because I don't want to short right on top of value area low. Tends to not work out so hot. So that's my, you can see what I'm talking about. There's that 106 right there, right? And this is the value area low right here, right? And my shorts tend not to work out so hot when I'm fighting against value area low, so I don't take it in copper. Even if it sets up decently, it has to stretch away. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. I've increased my trade size on copper this week. So again, prior I was onesies and twosies. Last week I went to 1, 2, and 3s. This week I'm going to 5 contracts, right? The margin's $3,000 per car, okay? So my goal is to work my way towards 10 cars and then 20 cars, but I will do it in very baby steps. I don't want to get smoked on copper, right? So, and we just had the biggest delta on a four range bar, just print. Hold on one second here. Chart settings. Yep. So see this right here, why I didn't want to short that? Here, I'll show this again. Let me drag this. There we go. It's a great example. See this right here? Okay, that was my biggest delta. See how it rejected the first time, but I didn't want to short. Now see how we just beat with this 332? That's the biggest delta of the day on that 4 range. And now for the US session, that 467, it still doesn't trump this 893 back here, but it's a big delta, right? So now I'm going to assume, right? So now my targets change. Right? I'm going to assume that we're in this 337 as long as that holds, right? So if you want a low risk trade, right, you grab that as long as it holds this, right? So you can do this with basically a 6-tick stop, 2604, 2683, and it's backside testing this 332. That should hold. It's not, and there's a bit of an art form in trading between big deltas. We're running the structure off to the left, and you have to kind of balance in your head what you're looking for because these are two very different size range bars, right? This is 20 ticks, this is 4 ticks, right? So this is 5 times, this is a bar that's 5 times larger. Again, the 2603, 2.6305 keeps me from wanting to be short. And see how we backside tested the 332 and immediately rolled back up, guys? That's trading order flow. This is a big order. It got defended, right? And the natural target for that guy has got to be a 2.680. Okay, if it fails, and you're back underneath this 332, expect a retest of the 2.6305. Okay, so you want to be flexible around this. Anyways, I didn't take it because I was teaching it, but I'm long oriented above 2.6305. Okay, in general. Again, you see how we're working against that 2.907, right? Biggest delta here at the bottom, right? These two. I want to see it close back above. Really a close back into 2.2907 for the long side trade. So my guess is we're just going to chop here until the president figures out what the hell he wants to do in terms of announcements. And again, those announcements have been coming out between 10 and noon our time. Believe me, I know because I remember my stops very, very clearly. I need to try to go. Hold on one second here. Graphic settings. Candlestick. Let me see if I can fix this real quick. Upfill, color, light green. Okay. Downfill, pink. There we go. There we go. Now we can actually see that easier. First point of control to close underneath the biggest delta in NQ. Okay, that's what's got to be gotten over to trap them. The obvious test is 75.39 to 75.48 on the trap back above. And NQ is having reasonably challenging morning, down 65 points, right? It just depends on where you want to get that set up. And I want to show y'all something from NQ overnight. It actually had a really nice short setup. Daniel caught that. See on the close Friday. We have that 965. See that right there? Look at the backside test of that. Not a tick above. All right, that was a pretty beautiful, sweet stop. That was less than $120 a contract. And if you're patient, you ended up with the roll all the way down. Again, I'm not so crazy about trading that, but that backside test occurred. We opened right into it. or right underneath it. We tested right into it around 4 a.m., right? And look, I want to show y'all, when you fantasize about catching these pushes, look how long that took. That's from 5 a.m. That's been 4 hours of sitting on this trade to get this roll to the downside. It's not an easy, when you're trading NQ, it's not an easy accomplishment to do that. Again, we've got the point of control underneath the biggest delta now. For those looking for a continuation trade, or if you're already short, that's a good sign. Again, I would drag my stops on any close above this 30.27. I would close out that short. That gives you a chance to push lower. You have two qualities there. You're below value, right? And you're getting the biggest delta and you're closing underneath. I'm not short. I'm just pointing out what the setup looks like. Okay. New low. And remember to be looking at your charts for the support areas below, right? We're right into that second anomaly at 74.95 on, hold on a second here. Where's my NQ chart? On NQ, we're pushing right into support, right? See this here to the left? That area will usually get defended first time in, just FYI. So you're looking for the biggest push, which we just got. We got a 510. The close above the 510 would generally, though not always, create a squeeze back up. Let me see if I can point this out. Okay, close above this guy, which this bar is working on. This is resistance now up above. As long as you don't trade below this point, right, you have a decent long. It's not sufficient just to trade it because it printed, but you actually want to see the close above and then try to get a backside test into it. Or if you can afford it, just take the long. Your stop has to be underneath here. So you're talking about a 10-point stop or $200 a contract, right? But your RR has huge potential here if things work out, if they trap and push back up for a backside test. So again, my focus is on ES right there. I want to get above that 30.27, and I will find a way to fire on that if I can get it. Let me get rid of this. To the left, right? Big delta divergence, 1462, right? Close above. Again, that's a good sign. Even with, just remember, you're going to have to get above and work through the chop in this area to get the push back up. Okay. If we close above this, I will take a half trade. Half here. So my long will be 29.0650, just below the 29.07. If we actually do roll lower, I'll get stopped on this, right? Take half here, half on the backside test, stop 2 ticks below. My stop should be 2 to 2.5 points. Okay. So again, when I call out those trades, I'm just trading process is all I'm doing. And I should have taken, I was talking and it cost me, right? It's the same process as this is when we close back in and trapped on copper, right? Value area low, we trapped in on a big bar. We trapped in on a small bar. We had a 352. We backside tested them. I missed this trade. I should have caught that. That should have been easy pickings for me. I didn't take it, but it's Monday. Maybe my brain's not going fast enough yet. So again, I got to get above here. I'll tag tag ES if it closes above. I'm aware that we're below value, and if I get stopped, I'll just mark long below value. But it had everything else I look for normally except the stretch. And there's one key, and I was talking about this with Randy. This trade has a harder time when it's right by value area high, value area low. It works much better when we stretch away 5 or 10 points because then it gives you a clear target. I realize I'm going to smash right into this and have to deal with VWAP and all this other noise. The trade still has a over 60% win rate even in this circumstance. It's enough for me to justify the loss. So it'll be half-half. Half on the close, half on the backside test, stop 2 ticks below, target back up to 29.10, 29.12. Again, the thing that's weighing on us is this China deal. So I think if we can just get the news out of the way there, we should have a much easier chart flow-wise. The target up on copper, if you're long, is 2.6650, followed by 2.680. Oh, and NQ, by the way, you're triggered. You closed above, right? What you're trying to get. Backside test here. 75.01. Stop. I put a 10-point stop on that. Okay. And that is good for me. I'm going to take that long on NQ. I trade NQ smaller for those who aren't familiar. Where am I? 75.05. So I took 75 spot 0675, and my stop will be 74.95. Okay, so just over 10 points, right? I'm looking for a 1-to-1 RR. And I will take my ES trade still if it sets up. Again, I have to get off over the deltas off to the left. This is a valid setup. It's not as big a delta, but everything's set up here long. So I'll be long ES, half size. Set that trade up right now. $2.9 spot 06.25. And I am longs 2 spot 906 quarter. My backside test for the second half of this trade. Put it up on the dome in a second. It's 2 spot 905, and I'm already there. Again, news will sweep me. If you're concerned about getting crushed on this news environment, there's nothing you can do. The stop is going to be 2 spot 902.75. And I'm sitting at 2 spot 905 right now, unable to get filled so far. You may need to front run that by a tick. Okay. I'll put it up on the Slack channel. Yeah, Daniel nailed that short. He really did a good job on the NQ short. 906.5. Right, so my stop on that trade is working out to sorry, my average is 2905.75, not 0675. Yeah, that's right. 2906.50. My stop is 2902.75, so just under 3 points. Okay. And again, I have no idea that trade will or will not work. Right. I know that all I'm going to put in my notes was 29 spot 07, right? Is going to be my hurdle along with VWAP, right? And now we're backside testing NQ, that same big delta, right? We've closed above. This is the backside test. If you're looking for a low risk entry, your stop's right behind it. Decent size on ES. I'm just going to focus on ES for now. Again, news environment and below value is the only problem with this trade, right? So if it gets stopped, just part of the process. And that's all I'm trying to do is follow my process. And the hard part there I'll note is that we had to get above this 3,000 delta, but this is a high odds. This right here, all we're missing is the 1,000 delta over here that we need to push us above, right? That's the only thing that would have made this any better. We just haven't gotten that yet, and I hope to get that soon. See if they bury themselves on it. Let me move this over a little bit so you can see this. There's no time limit on this trade either. And all you want to ask yourself is, are you okay with taking the stop here under these circumstances? That's about it. And if you're not, you just skip and go, I'm not willing to under these circumstances. Because otherwise you get anxious when it comes back against you, or if it stops you and you go, my day's ruined. And the circumstance is being underneath value area low. So the only challenge there with the scale is the 2907, right? Is right there. The flip side is if you trap back into that 2907 and they squeeze, you have the other end of the range and possibly a retest of last week's highs off that entry. And you can see on NQ, look how beautiful that trade was. Biggest delta at the low, close above, half entry. Look at your setup. It's just gorgeous, right? And you can have the same thing there on ES. ES is responding a little bit slower, right? But 2 points is my first scale. That'll pay for the majority of the stop, right? And I'm going to try and get it, see if I can get it above and push back to value area high at 29.13 and a quarter or higher, right? So what's my risk? News is one possible risk. An inability to get back above value area high. That's the other possible risk. Okay, I'm willing to live with both those risks. Okay. There goes NQ. ES should follow suit here. And remember, news, you won't have any, it will just sweep you. And if you get stopped, it's the benefit of the stop. It's not a penalty, it's a benefit. Did anyone grab that NQ? Mari, did you trade it? That was a pretty good setup. It's the biggest delta off the low. That initial rejection off of VWAP's to be expected because locals are in control. And copper, I goofed that trade. That was an easy upside trade. I really goofed that. That's all right. Need a 1,000 delta on NQ. I mean on ES, excuse me. Get that push. So the other rule is if you're uncomfortable in the trade at any point, right, you can punch out, but write down the reason why you punched out and what the effect was afterwards, because we're all uncomfortable, right, at one point or another when we take risk, right? No one's like really comfortable, like, wow, they take my money from here. I'm totally comfortable with that. You're uncomfortable with the stop, right? You just want to make sure that stop is managed to a reasonable rate and you give yourself a chance. The only thing this is missing right now is a positive 1,000 delta. If we can get that, we should get a test back up to 2907, right? Remember the last couple of weeks, we've been consolidating these areas for a long time before finally making the push. They've really been selling the, hey, it's going to roll down hard deal, right? And remember, my goal is to take my trades in sequence properly, right? You still need to get freed above these two guys to push. Cool. Got you, Mari. Well managed. That's all you can do. Sometimes it'll rip, sometimes it won't. And remember, if this stops me, how many of these setups, right? So if I get stopped, how many of this particular setup right here has been worth 5, 10, 15, 20 points, right? A lot of them, right? If you're constantly scared of getting stopped when this setup comes, here, like I said, the only thing it's missing is the 1,000 delta. But if you're constantly scared of taking that trade, right? Because you're like, well, it might not work or I might get stopped. Think about the number of times that's cost you 5, 10, 15, 20 points. If it's a 70% trade and this trade stops you, right? What you've witnessed is the 30% of the time where the trade doesn't work, right? That's all that you're witnessing, nothing more, right? Secondly, your average, right? Your average should be spot back at 2905 spot 6. It should not be a big stop. It shouldn't be big enough to break you for the day. If it is, right, if that stop breaks you for the day, then that risk is too large. ES probably isn't the right vehicle for you, frankly, because you can't trade it 100% perfectly. I'm kicking myself a bit on copper. That was a good second load above value area low. Also, now we have IB high and low in, right? It's very common to test IB high, IB low. As a matter of fact, when we don't test IB low or IB high, it's 3% of the time. 3% of the time. A test of IB low or IB high does not happen. Okay, so that's a big deal. Meaning if it doesn't happen, so if we make that dive down, right, and it pops back up, you got to be willing to retake it. It's normal that we're either going to get the top of the range tested or the bottom of the range tested. I think the bottom of the range actually got put in decently, and now we're headed towards London close. So let's see if we can't. We've had time to trap shorts now, so let's see if we can't do the old squeezeroo and get them out. Or if they come and get me, that's okay too. NQ just ping ponging between its biggest deltas now. So it has to clear 75.20 basically to push up. Thank you. Yes, we got to clear 2907, and then you have a good chance of pushing the other end of the range if it can do it. And again, my stop is in at 2902 spot 75. Which I want to show y'all something. This will be a pain if my stop actually gets tagged. Right? My stop is just below Globex lows. See that? We tested below right here. Okay. Those were Friday's lows, and we're stuck below IB low. Right. So yeah, I'd be a little disappointed if I actually got tagged on that. But ask me what I can do about it. The answer is absolutely nothing. Right. I either trust my setup and I take it, or I don't, and I constantly agonize for the rest of my career as to whether or not I have a setup that can pay me 5 or 10 points. I don't want to do that. I'm happy paying 2 points in exchange for 5 and 10 point trades, or 3 points even. And since I have no control over the pace at which they turn these things or how long they take to do them, I'm just a passenger at this point. Possible news: we just jumped just either an algo just hit or something. We cleared 3 levels or 4 levels on it. ES. So just heads up. That's weird that we did that. It didn't go anywhere, but it cleared out all 3 levels at once. So there's a little nervousness in the dome. Coming down for a retest of the lows. And again, if I get stopped, I'll end up writing it was right. The setup came right underneath value area low. And I knew that was going to be a challenge, right? But no matter what exceptions I come up with, it just cost me too much when I missed that setup versus just paying the price of entry. I sure hope people are shorting it here. I need that fuel. Marty, the way you could have managed that trade, see the delta over here to the left on NQ? I know we got to get you fixed up on your delta still, right? But see here how you ping ponged? That's all you did. There's your big delta downstairs. There's your big delta upstairs. You just wanted to target that bottom of that delta for your first scale, right? And that would have put you right about. Oh, maybe it just missed. Oh no, that's why you just missed. I got it because it was 7.514 1/4. You must have just missed by a tick, huh? Because it went almost right to it. Not quite, but almost. I thought that was a good trade. Looks like they want to press the low on that ES, which is fine. I hope a lot of people are pressing that low. It'll make it very unpleasant for them going the other direction. Wow. When you miss by 2 to 3 ticks, Mari, and it backs off, like just drag it halfway to make sure you get it when you're that close. Right? That hurts. It's frustrating when it comes all the way back on you, I know. Beautiful. Let's go. Squeeze the daylights out of them. Guys, I'll be back in just a second. My stops are in place. On everything but trend day down, this is where shorts trap themselves as they try to press for that break to the downside. All right. And I think the only reason we're not popping is because everyone knows we're waiting for an announcement from the White House or from China. We've all gotten conditioned to just look for that roll down. Watch cumulative delta. You know, a lot of times when we cross that 20K barrier, we'll get a quick roll down. This is just taking a lifetime. And then watch the consolidation below value area low now for an hour. That's an issue. And again, that was an issue entering it. We knew underneath value area low, there's challenges. I'm pretty good with the challenge at the top third of the range. Now, in the bottom third of the range, guys, this setup is suicide to take it before it crosses back up. Okay, they will push hard off of this. Anywhere off the top third of the range, right? This is a great short setup, actually. Right, you're just looking to get underneath this, and it should roll to the downside, right? That's anywhere off of the top third of the range. But at the top third of the range, all this does is traps you, and they push to the other end. Large offer on the ask, 1,500 contracts, which was ran key recently, has been pretty high. We can get past that guy. And he's lifted already. Is that the first time that 1,500 has been sitting there? Yeah, I agree. I agree, James. We're going to need a little help here. Again, the overall setup versus watching the tick by tick, that was an important number, right? I'm fine taking the stop on this. I'll take it every single time. I don't want it. I'll just take it. It's the price of admission for this particular ride, and it's a good ride usually. Here comes the test of IB low. They may stop me and pop it afterwards. That'd be unfortunate. There's IB low. 0375 stops me, so 03. 0275, excuse me. Sorry. Remember, if I get stopped, I just go for the new setup. I'm stopped. Okay, no big deal. I mark it in my journal, right? What do I mark? Took this setup. I had to get above here. I couldn't, right? We went sideways. This is really important, guys. Don't lose track of it. New largest delta right there at the low, by the way. So this creates a trap back in above. I'll do the same process again. This is very important because it's the distinction between making money long-term. I'll type it in. Okay. It's a distinction between making money long-term and not making money long-term. This trade right here, right, your stop was appropriate, right? If you look at this every time, you go, well, it took too long. Look at the last 4 times this setup has come. It's taken 30, 40 minutes to get the push back to the upside, right? Now, if you go, hey, when this setup comes and it's right underneath prior day's value area low, I don't want it. Nice job, Peter. You don't want it right below value area low because you're afraid this is what's going to happen to you. You simply go, okay, you simply say, I don't take this trade because I have these barriers right in front of me where I wait to get above my biggest delta, which we couldn't do. But what I have found is even with these stops, the occasional stops, right, the ride to getting to the other side of the range is more than worth it for me. Now, here's the flip side, right? You close back above this guy now, and you've trapped all your sellers, and you've accomplished breaking IB low. You trap back in. The whole trade sets up for me again for a push back to the upside, and yeah, I'll take it. So, anyways, I'm pretty comfortable with the trade, as y'all can tell. And I need to check one thing just. Pretty cool. We're good. Right to the very bottom on that NQ to test the low. Front, back. Boy, I hope they get that news they're looking for. And right for that 2,900. This is your bogey right now. And remember, all these deltas are stacking up on top of each other. You're going to have to get back above 2,906. This is your bogey right now. That's what has to be gotten above. Not much for me to do here. And what I could have easily done is just flip short here after we closed underneath it. You can see how everyone was looking for the same trap I was, right? So then they long liquidate it. It's tough when we're all on hold for the same thing. Same thing on NQ now. That first trade worked. We're going to just repeat the process, right? Looking for our biggest delta, get underneath, get back above, right? It's just a 1, 2, 3 process. If you want to be short off the top and you think that's where you belong on a day like today, and that's what you want to short, be my guest. It's not my trade. Just to give you perspective on daytime, we're down 88 on NQ, down 11 on ES. And obviously, you're going to have people trapped at that 96 to 75.01 on NQ. That's what you're going to get back above. So again, I don't want to short this, right? But the backside test of this area with a stop right above, right, makes sense. And notice we're getting those deltas stacked on top of each other here, right? Big deltas after big deltas. Remember, those you have to start treating that whole area as a resistance level, right? So what we want is an even larger delta to print at the low or another delta divergence setup. Backside testing that same big delta now from underneath. Same thing with ES. Algo's top of the hour. See if they can't get them to squeeze up. I'd expect rejection out of there on the NQ. We're just flipping it back the other way. See this? Bounce, bounce, bounce. Now they're pushing in from the other side. I would expect them to push back down. If they get back above, it's a trap and it's a go, right? But they should have difficulty pushing through the first time. There should be trap traders there. It should give an initial rejection, right? There could be too many trap traders there. And that appears to be the case. They pushed right to the back of that. Should be hard to push over that for them into London close. Nope. They're squeezing them. I would have agreed with Peter, but they aren't making it easy, are they? 23 minutes to London close. See what that brings. Yes, back into that biggest delta. Get above that. That would be a good thing for the longs. And NQ working on its biggest, getting above its biggest delta as well. Too many shorts. So remember, close above this bar, right? When these bars are in the middle, this becomes trickier, right? You've got to get above to push, right? But because of where the swing low is, this becomes a very tricky location. The rule generally is close above and push. You have the exact same problem, 2907. I think the only reason we're setting up like this, guys, and we didn't snap is because everyone's on hold for them to make an announcement about China. So the choppiness is not unexpected. It's just frustrating. That's all. Otherwise, that prior setup should have been an easy 2 points. Plus, move the trailer. Short's getting squeezed, guys. I don't know if that last push was just an announcement or what happened, but this is exactly what I expected to happen off that low over here. So we just didn't get the setup. That's frustrating to say the least. Right back to the top of the range. We're balancing. You get above that 75.20. Watch for the squeeze on NQ. Hey, Randy, you want to help? You want to expand on that, please? What do you mean with the 1,000, the 1462? What I'm not understanding on the how it's supposed to work. Or send me a direct message, one of the two, if you don't want to do it publicly. How's what's that's not how what's supposed to work. You're just in the hole, that's all. And you're waiting on news. You shorted the biggest delta of the day. It didn't close above, right? You just had to have a stop 2 ticks behind. We already know it's choppy because it didn't respond off of here, right? It's frustrating, but it's true, right? I'm not trying to advocate that you did anything wrong at all. Right. So it's just choppy, that's all. And we're right in front of London close and everyone's waiting on news. Like we're literally waiting to see whether the Chinese are going to, not come and sit down with the US on the tariffs, if Trump's going to. No, I'm with you, and that's what happens when. So I'm going to go back to the news story, right? Everyone and their brother sitting and waiting on this thing, right? Back over here, which I pointed out earlier in the day, right? We're all waiting on this stupid thing to get cleared up right here. That was a news story. And I said, so this is going to be floating around somewhere on Monday and will likely create a trading opportunity. But the opposite of that is while everyone waits for them to say something, right? We're just going to kind of that's going to put a certain number of people on the sidelines. Like no one likes to get repeatedly stopped out on the same news story, right? And that's exactly what's been happening to people is they've been getting stopped out on the exact same news story. So people kind of go, I don't know if I want to commit to that, right? And then we just kind of get this general blah, 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 blah movement around instead of sharp responses, right? So like here, there's no clear reversal pattern down here. If you ask what we traded into, we moved into there we go. Oh, thank you. Excuse me. So what do we move into? We came down. We just came into these single prints and responded back up, but we didn't come to an anomaly or any major level or anything else that we would have been working off of to go, oh, we should get a response there, right? There's certain areas where we expect a response, right? Those were the two areas that I highlighted today. And what have we done? We've traded right below the low. They've responded back up. They filled Dalton's gap. I guess you could go with that. They filled Dalton's gap at that 29.01, right? But it's really, when we get done with this, it'll end up looking like a balanced day. And I just put down in terms of my wins or losses, which I have one loss on ES, right? I'll just put down, hey, balanced day. Waiting on news. I traded right below value area low. I thought, and I made my argument for, I thought that the trade entry trumped, no pun intended, trumped the value area low. I thought we could trade back in off that setup. I'm willing to lose money, but what I'm not willing to do is short it or go long into the hole, right? Without a counter rotation back up. It's just too difficult, which is why I didn't take it. So I don't think you did anything terrible. You back short of the biggest delta, right? But I think I would restate also the way you wrote that. I would replace that from "that's not the way it's supposed to work" to "that's about a 70% odds trade." What you witnessed was that 30% of the time it doesn't stop before trading more than 2 ticks behind the bar. That's what I would write down on that trade, right? Because I want to condition myself to trade off of probabilities instead of did it. I don't want to be when you state the case like that. What you end up doing is stating the case in a you're backseat driving the trade, right? So if that's your trade setup and you took it 100 times, so obviously you went through and found 100 examples of that, right? And you had to find examples of where it did not work, right? So what you witnessed, if you have a 70% win rate and a 30% lose rate, and your RR is 1-to-1 or better, that's a profitable trade for you, right? So you should think absolutely nothing of getting stopped on that trade, seriously, right? Besides the fact that no one likes to get stopped. I think the same thing on this setup right here. All I was missing was a 1,000 delta, which you'll notice I never got over here. That's all I was missing on this formula right here. Okay, I needed this bar back over here, but that's fine. This was close enough for me for hand grenades the majority of the time, right? And it just didn't work. I never got the 1,000 delta to print. Okay, but I'm not going to go and say, oh, that's not the way it's supposed to work. There's no rule on how it's supposed to work. It's a probability, right? Either it sets up or it doesn't, one of the two. London close in 1 minute, right? Randy, did that make sense, buddy? What I said to you? I I I think you did everything correct according to your process. Again, I think it's a 70% trade approximately, right? Sometimes it's a 100% trade, sometimes it's a 60% trade, but it generally floats 70 to 80% of the days, right? It just didn't work this time, right? What what you want to find out when you're doing your homework, right? You're going to be aimed towards finding all the confirmations that the trade works or doesn't work, right? What you want to do is just go, how many times you want to be clear. You had to find some stops in that process, right? Not a lot, but you had to find some stops, right? And then what you want to say is if it had a 70% probability of winning and a 30% probability of losing, that means in 1,000 trades, that's 300 trades randomly distributed that lose, right? You just go, there's the 30% right there. And so the guy who was making the bet that that wasn't going to stop and was long through that, he had the 30% trade, right? I'd rather be on the 60%, 60, 70% trade side of that formula, personally. Hope that makes sense. And again, I think if we close above this guy, I'm inclined to do half, half, and go, right? I'm willing to take that trade again in the same location. I'm telling you guys, the market's on hold. I would not place a trade right now. Everyone's waiting on news, and that's all that's going on here. Guys on YouTube, I'm going to kill it because we just don't have enough motion to do anything. I had one setup on ES. I took the long. It didn't ever reach my scales. Stopped. I've got nothing else to trade at this point. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents. We're just chopping, waiting on anyone to say anything, and we're just stopping people out left and right. So that's my 2 cents. And I will be back tomorrow morning. I'll do a trade review later tonight. Thank y'all for joining.